Ultimately, what is it we have seen in the query designer course? So why do we use query designer course? We use it to design a query. Now, what is a query? It's a question what is put onto the backend provider. So, can I do report? Can I create a BEX query on InfoCube? Can I create BEX query on ODS? Yes, I can also. So, any object on which I can create a BEX query, we call that as info provider. So, Cube is an info provider, ODS is an info provider, or multi-provider info. We'll see other info providers also available. We can create queries on any of this, right? So, for creating query, which component do we use? We use BEX query designer. Now, yesterday I had some interview. They asked me a question. Do you know query designer? Ante, what is difference between characteristic restrictions and default value? He asked me, what is the difference between characteristic restrictions and default values?
Characteristic restrictions will be static.
This is what it is. Inga gurtu raledante. In the filter block, you have characteristic restrictions and default value. That was you are asking.
Default value, you are able to drag and drop those restrictions out.
You will not be able to see in the report. You will not be able to see in the report.
So when you're running the report, on the left side, you see whatever restrictions you have implanted at your query designer level. But you won't be able to see them when you have them under characteristic.
So what makes a difference?
In characteristics, so you can't remove them.
You mean seeing and that is important, not about seeing.
Both things.
If I do restriction in characteristic restrictions, okay, the restriction plays on the query and user will not be able to change the results filters, okay. But if I do filtering in this default values, it affects my query in the initial view, user will be able to change those values. That is major point. Yeah. So you understand about this filter. Then about about rows, columns, free characteristics, you drag and drop. If I have info in the rows, it does show downwards. If I have the characteristic in the free characteristics, when you run the query initial, at the first step, it is not shown in the result set. Later, it is shown in the navigation block. If user wants, you can do drill down or drill across. And you'll have columns. When you place the info in columns, it shows values across. So does it mean that you have only keywords into columns or anything else? Depending on the view, what you want, you can drag here and then. Then he asked me, what is the difference between restricted keyword and new selection?
Restricted keyword is global. Restricted selection is global with a particular.
And no selection is local.
Yeah. So we'll say new selection is local. I also told him same. New selection is local and restricted keyword is global. He asked me what is global. When I say global, you can reuse the same keyword in all the queries you design on the same provider. Then I still continued saying you can have two structures in the report and you can be using keywords in only one structure. So the new selection built on one structure can use both keywords and characteristics. On the other structure, when you build new selections, it will be able to leverage only characteristic info objects.
So the one structure containing the key figures will only be able to use key figures in this selection.
And other structure cannot use it. Say I have two structures. This is one structure, right? Let's say I have another structure. Now this here I am just using some, let's say some keyword into it. Now if I try to build new selection here, it allows me to select keywords and characteristics in the definition. But if I try to build a new selection in this, it does not allow me to choose only characteristics. This is what the difference is. But restricted keyword, that's not the case. Yeah. Good. Then they'll ask you what is the difference between new formula and CKF. Global and local. Now what and any other difference? Calculate keyword can be used can use any keyword which is in the keyword structure, but new formula will be able to use only those elements which are in the structure.
Which in the structure.
Okay, structural elements only. Yeah. What?
CKFs as well as whatever is in the structure. Or?
No, see. Now if I say right click, say new CKF, I can use all these as anything as operands, any CKF, any RKF, any keywords, anything. Yeah, but when I go with formula,
Whatever is in the structure.
only what are there, the structural elements only can be used. That's what I meant to say. Okay, boss? Then what is the function nodim for? When you want to get the keyword value without the unit free, use nodim. Good. Suppose I am doing a divide by 0 error and I am getting exception. How do we control this? No div. We have a function called no div which can be used. Okay, good. Now how do you implement if else condition in CKFs?
So multiply.
So I have two columns, column 1, column 2. I need to check both this column 1, column 2, which one is greater, I need to print that in the next column. How will you do this?
Star is for M and then plus is for the.
Instead of saying that, explain him. Say node dim of column 1 greater than node dim of column 2, then into node dim of column 1 plus node dim of column 2 greater than node dim of column 1 into node dim of column 2. That's how you build, by using this operators plus and into, you start manipulating it if and else. Okay, boss? That is one. What is the purpose of CKF? When you want to derive a new keyword based on some perform calculation of the existing ones, and you derive a new CKF. That is what calculate keyword does. Yeah. Good. What is exception aggregation? He'll ask a question like this: did you work with exception aggregation? Whenever you get a question saying did you work with, he is trying to put a pressure on you because you cannot escape again. Okay. Generally, if he asks you questions straight away, what is exception? You can say I did not work on it. So first he makes sure, did you work on exception aggregation today? No one would do. There's no question, you say no. Yes, okay. Then he'll ask you, what is the purpose of exception aggregation? So by default, every keyword must have an aggregation function in the BEX OLAP function. When you run the BEX query, your keyword must run with some aggregation function, whether it's sum, min, whatever it is. By default, keyword runs with the standard aggregation, what is maintained in the backend. Let's say it is summation. But if I don't want my keyword to work with the standard aggregation function as summation, or I want to work it with like count, min, max, last value, anything, then I go with exception aggregation. Can exception aggregation be nested under? For example, let's say I have one keyword. I use this into one formula, define exception aggregation. Can that be again used into another formula, again define exception aggregation? Yes. We can do nesting of aggregation, exception aggregation is also possible. ఒక కీవర్డ్ ఉంది, దాని ఒక ఫార్ములా వాడుకుని దానికి ఎక్సెప్షన్ అగ్రిగేషన్ పెడతా, దాన్ని మళ్ళీ ఇంకో ఫార్ములా వాడుకుని ఇంకో ఎక్సెప్షన్ అగ్రిగేషన్ పెట్టుకుంటే వెళ్ళొచ్చు. ఐ కెన్ డూ నెస్టింగ్ ఆఫ్ exception aggregation is possible. You might ask you, what was the scenario for you using exception aggregation? You can say, we are doing sales reports, we wanted to get the number of orders. Say for a customer specific or for particular sales organization, for a particular company code, I wanted to know number of orders. But I had a keyword called order amount. Order amount gives me complete amount value. I don't want amount, so then what we did? We use this order amount into formula. For this formula, we defined exception aggregation as count with reference characteristic as sales order number. So it was giving me the count of order numbers. Clear this, boss? That is one. Then he'll ask you, this is the what is the difference? Did you work with cell definitions? He says. What do you say? Yes, we work. Yes, we work with cell definitions. Then why do you go for cell definition? We wanted to derive a logic for each cell, so we wanted to go with cell definition. That's why we went with. We had two structures. Then we had to work out the cell definition, define a logic there. Can you give me a scenario where did you really work with this cell definitions? Then you say, we are designing a report on the customer segmentation, where we had different segmentation like gold, platinum, silver, or exceptional customer or essential customers. So we had built up a nodes, custom nodes in this one structure. In another structure, we had some measures. Then since we had two structures, we could enable cell definition. Then based on the customer type, we wanted to calculate these tax percentages, okay? Or we want to calculate the volume for anything. Based on the customer type, I just wanted to calculate on the volume percentages. Like say last minute change, how many orders were in the last minute changes based on the customer type. For this type of customer, how many last minute changes were there in the order? So I wanted to get the count. So then we did our own cell definitions, you can see. Okay. That is, then he'll ask you, do you know what is formula collision? Do you know what is formula collision? Why? You know what is formula collision? Yes. When we have a cell which is intersecting with the two resulting formulas, then you can use formula collision, you can see whether it has to result this value or the competing formula. Yeah. Then once you answer all this, then he gets it. Did you work with variables? Yes, Sanil, the first question is how many types of variables are there? What are the different processing types? Characteristic value variable, text variable, formula hierarchy node variable, and processing types, user interrupt default, customer exit, SF exit, authorizations, and replacement path. Good. Now, immediately when you say this, did you work with customer? First he'll get him, did you work with replacement path? Yes. He's just asking you replacement path. Then he's not focusing on any type of variable. You can give him any example in this case. Yes, I worked with replacement path when we were designing a trending report. We had a requirement of bringing the calendar year onto the description on the title of the column. Then we created we created text variable with the replacement path of calendar year and with offsetting of only 2 characters we wanted, and then we use text with okay, he understands it. Then you should not stop it there. We also use formula variable with replacement path. We wanted to have for a product key, we had something called safety stock level, and we wanted to based on the current stock, we want to compare the current stock and the stock level and see whether my current stock is within the stock limits or not. So we wanted to bring the key figure, which is actually an attribute of product key, into my calculations. So we use formula variable with replacement path. And we also use formula with replacement path when we designed on-time delivery report, because we had 2 dates, actual goods issued date and planned goods issued date. So these 2 dates were characteristics, and in order to get them into calculation, I had used formula variable with replacement path. One is first formula variable replacing actual goods issued date, another formula variable replacing planned goods issued date. Then we are minusing these two and comparing, not minusing, we are comparing these two. If actual goods issued date is greater than the planned, then it is not on-time delivered. So we are resulting 1 and zeros. 1 indicates it is not on-time delivered. So we are putting a condition to show only ones, which only results orders which are not delivered on time. So this is how it takes. Once you give this, he understands you are really strong. Then he gets next question is, you want to check in ultimate concept. Then he says, did you work with customer exit? Then what is it? Yes, we work with customer. As soon as he said, did you work with customer? Don't stop. Yes, you say, yes, we work with customer exit. We had a lot of requirement when we wanted to design with year to date, month to date, week to date, we written customer exits. And I also worked with I step 1, I step 2, I step 2. Then immediately ask him, did you work with I step 2? Yes, I step 2, I worked in. Then what was the requirement? User was basically specifying a date, and based on that date, we were supposed to calculate month to date, week to date, and year to date. So then we had used I step underscore 2, I underscore step equal to 2, where we had a table called I underscore T underscore var underscore range. I was reading the value from the input variable value from the I underscore T underscore var underscore range into int underscore structure, int underscore range structure. Then where my vname is equal to so and so. If size subverts, I'm just collecting that low value. From this low value, I'm deriving the current week. From there, I'm deriving the first day of the week, that into low value, and current date into high value, giving us week to date. Same way, from that, I'm deriving the current month. From that month, I'm putting for this month, I'm concatenating 01, that gives me first day of the month, and current day as the high value, that will give me month date. Getting what I'm saying? And from the date what is entered in the low value int underscore range layer, I'm just catching up the year. Then I'm concatenating 0101, that forms the first day of the year, that is low value, and the current date is my high value. So generally, they might ask you, do you know there's something I step 0? Actually, there's also something called I step 0. If you want to write the coding with dynamic authorizations, you can still write. There's a concept called I step 0 also. Then I ask you, when to use 1, when to use 2, when to use 3. Before variable screen is popped up, if you want to do dynamic default values, I use I step 1. When I want to populate a variable based on the value of another variable, I use I step 2. When I can use my I step 3 for validation checks, because it does trigger the code after you click on the execute button. This is how it is. And what is the enhancement? We use it for customer exit RSR 00001. This is what the questioning you get. Any other question? Yeah. Do you know what is the difference between restriction and conditions? Restriction is played on the characteristic, condition is played on the key figure. Now, can we have multiple conditions in a report? Yes. If I put multiple criteria in a single condition, they play with R. If I put criteria in different conditions, they play with AND. Did you work with exceptions? Yes. You say only it was rare we work with exceptions, because exceptions will degrade performance, so they don't use every query. We use it when I was designing a profitable analysis report for profit or loss. We have designed exceptions, so we worked on it. Cell definitions, exceptions, conditions, CKF, RKF, restrictions, drawing rows, columns, free characteristics, filters, again variables. What is this? Is maximum you can touch on Bex. I think should be fine. And keyword property, no one will ask you all the properties, but there might be a scenario where my some person might say, okay, let's say I have a scenario. This is a kind of questions on that. If some person might come out with a scenario saying, let's say I have a scenario like this. My cube has got metal number, metal type, and metal group, and I have a column keyword called demands. Now, when I run the report, I would like to get the metal number wise all the demands and the percentage of the demand of a particular product and the overall demands. Then what do you do? The question arthamenda. He wants to get the metal number and the demands, and he would like to see the percentage of this value on the total. Then what do you do? Do you do normalized to or do you know how to do this? Normalized to overall result. When a keyword properties calculate single value as normalized to overall result, what does it do? This will start showing percentage of that value onto result. Yeah. And they'll also give you a scenario. Let's say I have these two dates. They may not ask you replacement, but they might give you like, say, I've got sales order number, I've got actual goods issued date, and I've got planned goods issued date. Now criteria is if my actual goods issued date is greater than the planned, then it is not on time delivered. So I'll have to distort all the sales orders which is not delivered on time. Then how will you do this? Then you'll say, I'll hold the sales order into the rows. I'll build up a CKF where I use two formula variables, each one replacing with the actual goods issued date and one replacing the planned goods issued date. I'll build up a Boolean operation saying if actual goods issued date is greater than the planned, then if it is really greater, then results me 1. If it is not greater, results me 0. So I'm going to get all the sales orders with ones and zeros. One indicating actual goods issued date is greater than that, means it is delayed. It is not delivered on time. So I'll build a condition on that measure, key figure saying equal to 1. So it is only going to show me those orders which are not delivered on time, nothing but where actual goods issued date is greater than planned. This kind of logic you should start thinking of.
So there was a question I was asked in Polaris. He said, for example, you have a telecom company like Vodafone or Airtel.
Telecom
company like Vodafone or Airtel. So a call starts, and you want to calculate which of the calls have like how much time it took. So there are calls that have started and ended, but there are calls which haven't ended yet. So how do you get
So what I understand now is, like say there is a company like Vodafone, like you'll have list of all the calls. So for each call there is an history, like each entry is one call for me. So for each call you have start time of the call, end time of the call, and then you want to see what is the duration of that call. That's what you want to calculate. In some scenarios there is no end date, which I need to consider my current time as my end time. That's what it is. So first what I will do, look at this now. I'll just do it here, like say Vodafone, yeah, call number, start time, end time, duration. This is what you want to calculate, and all these are your okay. You have some timings, yeah, HH, MM, and and in some cases it might have HH here, MM here, SS here, and this might be blank. That's what. Now tell me, how will you do this? Now first, if someone asks me a question like this, I would cross check with him first. Is my start date and end time are characteristics? You would definitely, to make it complex, you would say yes. Then I would say, first of all, I use a formula variable, replace this start time into a formula variable with replacement path and replace this characteristic. Create a formula variable, say replacement path with the characteristic as start time, and make sure go to the currency and quantities, make sure the data type is time. You should put that as, you remember I was setting it as date, then you should set it as what? Time. Same we create one more, let's say that formula is ZDEF start, okay? I create one. Then what I'll do, again I'll create one more formula variable which will replace with what? End date. Again I'll say ZF E date was. Okay, was fine. Then what I'll do, now for example, generally when there is no time, your report would show 000000. By default, if there is no time, that is how the blank time is shown. So what I'll do, I'll create one more column. I'll say end time. Okay, which will be what? I'll put an if condition. If ZF end date is equal to okay, then what? Then I'll say into then what I'll do, I'll create one more formula variable with customer exit ZF C exit, which will get what? Current time. Which will get what? Current time. Okay. So then what happens now? Wherever it is blank, it will fill my current time. If it is, let's say now it is HH MM SS now, but here if it is now it is blank, right? Now does it fill the current time now here? Yes or no? So now I get this another calculated end time, C end time. Okay. Another column which says calculated end time. Again, what now for this duration? What I'll say? Again, I'll create one more formula variable which will replace with end time. ZF calculated E time. Okay. Now I'll go to the duration which says formula variable ZF underscore C end time minus what is ZF start.
So C and time will be a formula.
This is a formula. Yeah. What is it? No.
So my if condition would be another one formula.
First is I've got a formula variable which is replacing with end time.
Right.
That I'm using in this column saying if ZF underscore E date is so and so, yeah, into ZF customer exit variable I've got, which is current time. So wherever this time is blank, I'm putting with current time. So this column will start getting all the time. If there is a time, it brings the same time. If there is no time, it brings the current time. Now once this column is formulated, now I'll use this column into, now I'll replace this column into another formula variable now. Because, so this is CKF, right? Okay. This is not characteristic from the cube. So this is CKF, so I don't need formula variable. Straight away I'll say, what is this column? C end time minus, this is not formula variable. So this column minus the formula variable which is F start. So what happens? This is already CKF, right? Which is calculated KF. So I don't need a formula variable. I can straight away use this into calculation. So this column minus the formula variable replacing the value of this column, which is start time. So this column minus this column will give me duration. But this all makes sense if the call is getting closed on the same day. If it goes through the next day, then it is different, right?
That's what he told me, like, what if the call hasn't ended for 2 days, it's still running.
Yeah, then he has to calculate days also. Until unless you give me the date, I cannot know, because at least start should have the date, right? At least I should have start date. Then you'll have to give me timestamp, not the time. Timestamp will hold what? Date and time together. So then if I include date and time, that gives me number of days and hours. Without you giving me date, I cannot really give you the analysis.
So using, if I just have the date and the time, I can do concatenation internally.
Concatenating here doesn't make sense. You should do it in the back end.
Right. I mean, in the back end, you do the concatenation, and then basically what you're saying is take the two timestamps and just deduct this minus this and get it.
Because I don't think we have timestamp for formula variable. It can only hold date and time.
Right.
So you should get date, start date, end date, start time, end time. Then in the calculation you handle the date separately. First of all, you see whether dates are different or not. If the dates are different, then you minus this date from this date. That will give you number of days. Hold that. Then you do find the difference between the time. Then say you say 2 days and this many seconds or what it is. That is how you should keep. If I have date, so then you will do 2 calculations. You should combine both. So from the end date minus start date will give you number of days. And then if it is same, you don't get to the days. It will be only seconds. So if the date is different, then you will minus both of them, get the number of days. And the difference between the time will be in seconds. So 2 days, 30 seconds, 2 days, 60 seconds. That's what you should result out. They are like aggregation ratio. It's very simple only. Now let's say you have end date also. If it's not, now normally if it is ended, you will have end date. If not ended, it will be blank, right? Then you will try to fill that with side item again. Again you try to put side item. Then you say this date and this date are same, it's fine. You will only consider the timing. If this date and this date are not same, then you will say this date minus this date. You will get as say number of days, okay? And you want to get the duration. So if you get 2 days, multiply that with in 1 day how many seconds you can multiply that with so many days. If you get the duration is 2, I don't know how many seconds you will have per day. It will be what? 24 hours into what?
16 and 16. 2600.
So this will give you number of days is 2. For each day we have for 24 hours. For each hour it is 3600 seconds. So this will give you total number of seconds for 2 days. And this you should add up with what? Add up with the seconds, the difference what you get from the time. That will give you total seconds duration. Did you?
I got the basic idea.
So you'll have to calculate. Because what I'm saying, if you combine it as timestamp, I don't think you can use this in the formula way. Because
so there could be an exception here. Like my call started at 11:15 the night, and then it ended at 12:30 the next month. So 12. So let's say it started at 11:45 and it ends at 0:30. So although the time taken is 45
2 days you're not counting.
Although technically,
Yeah, if it has to go to that level, then it has to be timestamp. That's the only issue. Because if you're not having timestamp, then you will not be able to get into those seconds also. You cannot be possible. But more majorly, this is all you tried doing. You got to sit down and make it calculate. It's all about calculate key figure only. So you're saying you take this date and you take this time and you combine both this and convert into timestamp, number of seconds completely, and take this and this, convert into number of seconds completely. And once you convert it into number format, then do minus, then get the number of days, number of seconds. Like say for example, you're saying some date, some time bus, okay. Now what I'll do, by using time function, I can convert this into number of seconds. Sorry, from this date and time, you will say starting from this date, this time, you convert that into a timestamp format, which will be not like YOYMMDD. You convert into a pure timestamp, which will be a very big number, and UTC timestamp. Convert this also into UTC timestamp. You will get full timestamp like some numeric number. Minus those two, you get number of seconds. Then that will be your complete value. That is the better way of doing it. But if you want to concatenate in the CKF, how will you do? Because what I am saying is, in the CKF you don't have timestamp. Only time you will have.
only days you'll be able to calculate.
Say new variable. I should first replace it with some time field, then only it will take. I don't have anything like time, but first let me save this.